Hello students, I wanted to take just a second and review our second exam, and basically most of you did pretty well. Everybody did quite well. I think we had 11.59 points. The two questions that should not have been in the exam, I gave you credit for that as if you'd gotten it right, and quite a few did miss it, so we must be getting something from the class. Some of the things that questions that seem to cause some problems, though we had a few. Everybody seemed to understand where the depreciation fund came from, that it was from the general fund, so there was little doubt about that. One of the ones, the questions that several missed, and it surprised me a little bit, was the special building fund, and the question was that they had to have a vote of the people. The special building fund is a vote of the board. You do not have any kind of election to have a special building fund, and there's a cap on special building funds. It used to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 11%. Some schools used to put like 5 cents into that, and it's really a savings account for a new building or a new addition, those types of things. So a depreciation fund can be used for renovation. A special building fund is usually used for new facilities, although it can be incorporated. And sometimes that's a little bit of a game that you can play. For example, in replacing a roof, sometimes people will take the money out of depreciation funds, saying that they're taking care of it as part of a maintenance program. If they have the money in special building funds, they have the same project, you say, well, it's an improvement, which is what special building funds are for, and we're insulating the roof, so it's going to be a better system. Or if you're replacing a furnace system, you can use depreciation funds, saying, well, I'm just replacing it. If you have special building funds, which is for improvements, you can say, well, we're putting a more efficient system in. So that depending on where your money is, but there's not a vote of the people on a building fund. Let's see, bond issue strategies. Everybody seemed to be pretty strong in that. Question 8. I was surprised a few people missed that, and that question was about Nebraska providing equalization funds for poor districts to build schools, and there's no funding for capital improvements as far as facilities are concerned. A couple of you got some of the phases of a building project turned around, and if you got those switched, that somewhat penalized you more. Just kind of the steps that you'd go. The schematic phase that's the design phase, and basically where you're planning what the concept of the building is going to be. A design development is then what's going to go into that building. The electrician, plumbing, those types of elements are all part of the design development phase. Lighting. The construction documents then, of course, are what the architect will come up with, and will be very specific about what quality materials have to go into the building process. In our summer class, we take a field trip, and one of the things that we do is take a look at some of those plans, and it's pretty thick, to have all the plans that go in construction documents. But then the bidders know exactly what they're bidding on, and a good architect, and somebody didn't mention that in the question about selecting an architect, is one, there would be few change orders. But the other thing that's important is that they're pretty specific in the quality materials that are going to be used in the facility. The other half of that is sometimes they can be too rigid, and by being a little more flexible, allowing other substitutes, then sometimes the bid can be a little less. Bidding advertisements, of course, the definition of that was a way to make sure that there are enough viable bidders, and part of that advertisement should be specific enough that people know where the construction plans can be picked up, what the process is going to be, what the timeline is going to be. And normally you'll advertise that job for at least a month. And then there'll be a time when there'll be a pre-construction meeting where people can come in and ask questions about things they see in the specs. And then, of course, the bidding process. As a superintendent, I was surprised when we did our building how many phone calls I would get, which eventually I usually refer to the architect, but can we substitute this system for what you have in the specs, or will this type of building material be acceptable? And so usually I left that up to the architect to make those decisions, but sometimes availability, one of the things that our alarm system in the old building was not really compatible with the system that was put in the new buildings, and so we had questions about whether that could be substituted, and we did allow a different type of system to be part of the bids, but you have to make sure you get that out to everybody that's bidding so that they know there's been a change, and you have to have some lead time. And then the other element is construction monitoring, and basically that's in the traditional bid build, the construction monitoring is basically the responsibility of the architect. So I think basically it did pretty well. I think we had mostly A's, a few B's, but as you can see, as your points add up, why most everybody in this class is doing quite well. I mentioned the field trip, and I really wish there was a way that we could do that, but during the school year it's somewhat hard, and this particular semester it seems like we're spread a little bit, so I did not pursue that, and it is kind of nice to get to meet our fellow classmates. And so I'm going to I guess that's all that I have to say. I look forward to the end of the class. I'm sure you do too, so we'll talk to you later.